green energy is economic. It's only going to get cheaper. It's only going to get better. And it's going to continue to evolve. And the game changer is when you get to utility scale battery storage. We're not there yet, but when it does, let's say within a decade or two, the only source of power that could compete is existing nuclear reactors, or if the small, or what I call pebble bed reactors, like micro nuclear reactors, the 200 megawatt blocks, can be cost efficient. They're decades away from being that cheap, but green energy, I'm telling you, it's been a great place to be for myself and my subscribers. We've made a ton of money on it.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating area, and I without getting into all the political part of it, it seems like that's really kind of where the country is going. And as companies continue to embrace it, and as it becomes more economically viable for them, I can't see any reason why they wouldn't continue that.
The free
path.
market will always make the decision at the end. The government can push it, but if it's not economic, the people aren't going to push. If the innovations don't happen, the free market will say it didn't work. The free market is telling you that it's incredibly, like think about the cost of solar panels has decreased by about 90% in the last 15 years. That's incredible. And it's going to continue to decrease. You look at windmills, they're getting way more efficient. They're getting way bigger for the cost, right? So your cost of capital per output. And what a lot of people don't realize is these polluters, you take 30 of the world's so 33% of all global greenhouse emissions are emitted by 30 companies in the world. They haven't had to pay for that pollution. Well, when you have garbage, you have to pay to get it taken away, right? That's no different. And those companies are going to pay. So everyone who says, green energy is bullshit, doesn't work, it's not economic, those guys are not up to pace on the actual economics. Number two, when you apply the actual cost of the full cycle economics of the fossil fuel industry, it really starts pushing you towards the green energy sector.
That kind of fits into the reason why you're bullish on carbon credits and everything there. Can you explain that to somebody who's not familiar with them?
If you take the 30 largest emitters of pollution, almost 20 of them, 21 of them are publicly listed companies, meaning they have shareholders like you and me. Those shareholders have already spoken and voted. 50 years ago, nobody really knew what was going on. Today, the shareholders have stated, we want a reduction and we want ESG. Now, how have they voted? Cost of capital. There are trillions of dollars in the green bond market that will only invest in projects that meet the ESG category, environmental, social, and governance, the ESG. Now, those companies are going to have to make a move in it. So let's just say of the 30 largest, 10 are state-owned. So let's just pretend those 10 we're not going to do anything, even though they will, but let's just pretend they don't do anything on the commissions. But companies like Shell and Exxon, which are on the list, they are now forced legally to reduce their carbon emissions. Now, let's just say 50% of those companies make a move to reduce their carbon emissions by 50%. So we started with 20, let's go to 10. And now only they reduce by 50%. That increases the demand for carbon credits by over 20-fold. Think about that per year.
Wow.
There ain't no sector that I see right now that is going to increase by even 200%, never mind 2,000%. And that's just the beginning. Remember that shows 1/3 of the market. Then you've got the other 2/3. You think about, for example, let's say you're a copper company. So I talked about this a year ago, but quickly to explain it, when you do an MPV of a company, or you want to do a cash flow model, or how you calculate your NAV, not a single brokerage firm, investment firm, research firm included their cost of carbon emissions in their financial model. Now, I don't know, if you had a private business and let's just say it was whatever you produce, whatever widget, at the end of the month, you have all these odds and ends and you got to get rid of it. Wouldn't that count as a cost of your capital? Of course it does. But in the resource industry, the oil producers, the miners, the coal guys, the coal utilities, They've been getting away with this for 50 years. They're not going to get away with it anymore. So if you include the cost, if you included that cost of carbon, the greenhouse gas emissions in your financial model, you would find that there's a totally different cash flow model than the others. Now, how can a company do? Well, the government's already stated that there's the compliant market and then there's the voluntary market. You will see within a decade that companies are going to make a move to reduce their carbon footprint. Now, why should they do that? Because they believe they want a better future for their kids? I don't think that's going to be the reason they do it, because it comes down to the balance sheet. The reason the executives will decide to do this is because it reduces their cost of capital. For example, if you guys mentioned copper before, let's say a mid-tier copper producer is about 100 million pounds of copper. It costs you $1 billion to build that. Interest rate for a mid-tier copper producer for a one asset mine would be about 10%. That's a junk bond. But if they went ESG and went net zero, they could tap into that green bond market and they could reduce their interest rate from 10 to 5%. Now, even using $4 copper, that 100 million pound producer, they probably only make 50 million in free cash flow at the end of the year after all their costs. But we just reduced their cost of capital by 50 million a year in interest. You just doubled your free cash flow by 100% just by doing something that makes sense. And you make the world a better place for your grandkids. So that's why you're going to see thousands of companies move this way. That adds for the demand. And carbon credits are essentially a giffen good. A giffen good means as the price goes up, the demand goes up. People don't learn this in the economics because that's not what any commodity is. It's the only commodity. Bitcoin is not a giffen good. Gold is not a giffen good. Oil is not a giffen good. Carbon credits are.